Hey you guys, what is up? It is Sid here, and I want to talk about something extremely important. But before we get to that, there is a huge movement going on called the Black Lives Matter movement. I will be posting a couple pictures inserted into this video now. The reason I'm doing this is because I do not want to say something wrong, but I also don't want to be silent about it. It is June 1st, a huge month for the LGBTQ+ community. A lot of LGBTQ+ members are wondering why there's riots happening. There's no violence, there shouldn't be violence, all of that stuff. But a lot of us, and me included, I did not realize that there was a riot, a rebellion for us to get our rights. I should have realized that. I should know the background of my own community, but I was ignorant and I did not acknowledge the fact that someone had to do something for us to get our rights. And so the more I looked into it, the more I wanted to make a video on it. This is the Stonewall Riot. On June 28, 1969, the New York Police Department officers raided the Stonewall Inn. The bar itself became a safe haven for the LGBTQ+ community to be who they are and not have to hide it. At the time, homosexual acts were illegal in every state except for Illinois, which in 1961, they decriminalized the homosexual acts. Most of the gay bars in New York were operated by the mafia, who paid off corrupt police officers to look the other way, and they also threatened to out some gay patrons that were very rich if they didn't pay. 4 days before the Stonewall Riot, police of the NYPD stormed Stonewall and arrested some patrons and workers for bootlegging alcohol and other acts. They planned a second raid for Friday to shut down the bar for good. On June 28, 1969, the police department sent in 8 undercover cops into the bar and started arresting people and roughing people up. After entering the packed gay bar, the 8 NYPD undercover officers started arresting drag queens and cross-dressers. At the time in New York, masquerading was considered a crime. In the early hours of June 28th, the crowd erupted when police arrested a lesbian woman. The woman identified as Stormy de la Verre. If I pronounce her name wrong, I am very sorry. She complained that her handcuffs were too tight. People started calling the officers pigs and throwing pennies and bottles at them. They also started slashing cops' tires. As they started arresting more patrons and workers, the NYPD brought in more cops and police vans to start loading the patrons and the workers in. Marsha P. Johnson, a transgender woman and a transgender activist and drag queen, Sylvia Rivera, were both handcuffed. They both resisted arrest, and according to witnesses, Sylvia Rivera was the first to throw a punch. Although in 1987, Marsha P. Johnson said that she didn't arrive until later when the uprising was in full effect. Around 4 a.m., the crowds got bigger and the vans started bringing people away. While the vans drove away and the crowds got bigger, police barricaded themselves inside the Stonewall for protection. Rioters used bottles and firearms that they made and parking meters to try to break down the walls to get to the police. More police showed up, including the TPF, which is also known as the Tactical Patrol Force. The protesters outsmarted the forces by running away and circling around the block to then come up behind the police. After 4 a.m., the riot settled down and nobody was injured except for a few cops. On June 29th, despite all of the wreckage that the police had done, the Stonewall reopened. It became a place for gay activists to gather around. Supporters showing up chanted "Gay Power" and "We Shall Overcome." The police soon arrived and a larger amount of the TP force came. They beat and tear-gassed the crowds until they all disappeared. Does that sound familiar? But the next day, people still returned. It became a gay activist gathering point for people to spread information and build the community. It would further fuel the gay rights movement. Again, the police came, but this time it was not confrontational. On July 2nd, the gay activists and protesters all swarmed a paper company called The Village Voices after headlining the previous riot, The Forces of Faggoty. Some call for burning down the building, but the police started pushing back and soon another riot broke out. This one did not last as long and ended around midnight. Newspapers like the New York Daily News also used homophobic slurs in their headlines, such as "Homo nest raided, queen bees are stinging mad." Though the gay rights movement did not start in Stonewall, it marked a huge uprising turning point in the movement itself. And many New Yorkers and people all around the world found themselves in a community. Earlier, homophile organizations like the Mattachine Society gave way for other societies such as the Gay Liberation Front and Gay Activists Alliances. On June 28, 1970, the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall Rebellion happened. The first Pride Parade started at Stonewall. Hundreds of people gathered and started marching down 6th Ave in New York, and by the end of it, thousands of people gathered. Inspired by New York's examples, cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Boston, and Chicago organized gay pride celebrations that same year. The Stonewall would fuel gay rights movements in Canada, Britain, France, Germany, Australia, and New Zealand that carried on for the next century and beyond. And that is the history on how LGBTQ plus people got their rights and why gay pride is such a huge thing. It started with Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera and Stormy I don't want to say her last name again because I don't want to butcher it. Without those three women and all of the other people who were part of that Stonewall riot, the gay people and the black LGBTQ plus community would not have a safe space. And who knows how long into the future we would have went without gay rights. That is all for today. Happy Pride Month, everybody. I will see you in the next one.